So I'm starting off with a quote because you all would have realized by now from my writing and from my Instagram account that I really like a good quote. And it is within you, there is a stillness and a sanctuary to which you can retreat at any time and be yourself. And that's pretty much the essence of what we're going to be talking about today. How to find that sense of inner peace and calm, even when it feels like the outer world is all going to hell and like everything is chaos around you. You can still retreat into yourself and be okay. So, how do we define calmness? It's a state of tranquility, of peacefulness, of being composed in your mind. It's having a quiet mind. There's no monkey mind going on. Like you might have heard of that phrase, monkey mind. That's when you have a lot of racing thoughts. You're just jumping from one thought to another, one emotion to another. It's all a mess because you have no control over anything. And calmness would be the opposite of that. And physically, it's when your muscles are relaxed, your breathing is steady, and your heart rate is low. So, does that sound good to everyone? Is that what calmness means to you as well? Is that what you're looking for? So raise your hand if it is. Okay. Moving on. How do we get that sense of calmness? To do that, we first have to understand the nervous system because that really governs calmness. So, your nervous system is divided into two. There's the sympathetic nervous system, or SNS, and the parasympathetic nervous system, which is called the PSNS. So, the sympathetic nervous system governs the fight or flight response. Whenever you perceive a threat in the environment, like if someone is out there coming to rob you or attack you or stab you, your SNS is what is going to save you. It's going to produce a burst of energy by increasing your heart rate and increasing all the blood flow to your muscles so that you can either fight that guy off or so that you can run away. So, yeah, your sympathetic nervous system is about activating you, about giving you more energy. Your parasympathetic nervous system, on the other hand, is about rest and digest. So, once you are in a state of calm again, your PSNS takes over, and now you're at rest. And all the other sort of non-essential functions can take place, like digestion, excretion, reproduction. All of that is governed by parasympathetic processes. So, your SNS is the reason, basically, why you were not calm. Your SNS functions because your mind and body is trying to alert you to some kind of danger in the environment. And it works exactly the same way if it's a physical threat or a psychological threat. A real threat, an imaginary threat, it doesn't matter. The SNS works exactly the same way and it'll give you that same burst of energy no matter what kind of threat you're facing. So I used to have a real fear of public speaking, and my arms and legs would shake a lot, and that's because of that fight or flight response with that all that increased energy to my limbs. You might experience something similarly yourself when you're all keyed up and energetic. Now, the important thing to understand with the SNS and when you have a fight or flight response going on is that it actually feels wrong to be calm because your SNS perceives it as you trying to ignore the danger, as you trying to ignore all the information that it's telling you. If you have ever told someone who's upset to calm down, you'll know that it's the most useless thing in the world. In fact, that will upset them even more because that's not what you're supposed to do. Your SNS is trying to keep you safe by getting you to take the threat seriously. So when you try to ignore the threat and just tell yourself to calm down, That's the exact opposite thing of actually what works. And that's why it actually increases the stress response and it increases the emotion. So there is a way to deactivate the SNS, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. But it's important to remember that this is a skill. And like with any skill, it takes practice and it takes time to really improve. So before we get into that about how to deactivate the SNS, I want to ask you a more like philosophical question, which is should we aim for a life without stress or pain? Raise your hand if you think that the answer should be a yes. What about no? One second. I can't actually see. Sorry, was that for a yes or a no?
That was for a no from me.
Okay.
Yes,
No from me.
a no from everyone.
Okay.
Oh,
Right.
no, wait,
Sorry.
sorry. I beg to differ. I would say I'd like to aim for it for sure. But well, again, I don't know if I can achieve it, but yes, I'd like to aim for it for sure.
Okay. So let me tell you what my opinion is on the matter. Let me get back to the presentation. One second. And my answer would be no, because there are two different kinds of stress. There is distress and there is eustress. Now, distress, I'm sure all of you are aware of and are, yeah, you know very well what it is. There's no human being on the planet that has not experienced distress. It's the negative or harmful stress that arises from situations that are challenging, that are difficult, that are overwhelming. It's when you have an illness or a difficult breakup or when you lose a job, anything that really can cause you harm. But there's also eustress. Eustress is about recognizing that so many of the good things in life also come with an inherent bit of stress and pain attached to them. Getting married is stressful. Having a baby is stressful. Getting a promotion is stressful because it means you have to learn new skills. But if you avoid doing all of these things that bring you eustress, then you're never going to grow as a person. So now let me refine that question even more, which is should we aim for a life without distress? Raise your hand. Raise your hand if it's a yes, basically. Okay. Okay, two hands. Raise your hand if it's a no. Okay. So we have split opinions here. And let me tell you again what I think, which is that the need to avoid pain is pretty much hardwired in all of us. It comes from our most primitive brains, the most reptilian or the oldest part of our brains. And that part of our brain pretty much operates by one principle, which is avoid pain and seek pleasure. And that's really all that it cares about. And so, something that I get asked quite frequently in my line of work is why is it so hard for people to change? Why do we keep ourselves stuck in toxic patterns and unhealthy relationships and just jobs that don't fulfill us? Why do we not just make the change to improve ourselves? And that question makes a fundamental mistake. It makes the mistake of assuming that we are rational people, but we are not completely rational. The problem is that we all have an ego. Okay, when I say ego, I'm not talking about the general sense in which we use ego, saying that we're arrogant or something. I mean ego in the psychological sense or philosophical sense, which is your ego is your manufactured sense of self. It's the story that you tell yourself about yourself. It's all the beliefs that you have, the fears that you have, your expectations, your desires. It's the lens with which you view the world. And what your ego wants most of all is control. And it is terrified of the unknown. So even if a change would be absolutely beneficial for you in every way, you would still resist. Your ego would put up a fight because it is absolutely terrifying for the ego to do something that goes against your self image. And the only way that the ego will change, will start to lose its grip on you, is when you experience pain, severe psychological pain. Because at that point, your ego will go, okay, I'm so tired. I'm tired of being like this. I'm tired of being this person. I cannot go on like this. And when that process of surrender finally happens, that's when you can change. I can tell you that that's been true in my life. It's been true in the lives of people that I've worked with and all the other people that I know. So, if you are currently going through something that's really difficult, and if you're experiencing a lot of suffering, I want you to know that a breakthrough might be around the corner. There's a saying by the philosopher Alain de Botton that I really like, which is a breakdown can be prelude to a breakthrough. So, yes, even distress, severe distress can be the cause of growth in life. And what do you see in this kind of growth? Growth as a result of severe distress. You find a greater appreciation of life. You have closer relationships with other people. You become a much more compassionate person, a much more altruistic person. And you find a purpose in life and you see new possibilities because you're using your personal strengths in ways that you never thought of before. You become more interested in philosophy and spirituality, and you see creative growth and development, doing new things that you would have been terrified to do before. There is a saying by Carl Jung, which is there is no coming to consciousness without pain. And yeah, as severe as trauma can be, as pain can be, you should know that there can be a silver lining to all of it, that you can make the most out of it and grow. Right. To understand how to grow and how to make the most out of distress, we first have to understand what kind of beliefs and expectations you have about the world, because that really determines everything. Your expectations of the world, your expectations of yourself, they shape your experience. Your expectations shape your emotions, they shape your thoughts. So, when we talk about emotional triggers, it's not as simple as seeing something in the environment and being triggered by it. Because if that were the case, then all of us would be triggered in exactly the same way. But that's not the case. We know that different people react very differently to the same trigger. And that's because our minds and bodies construct our response, construct our stress response depending on our expectations. And our expectations are shaped based on our history. So I told you I used to have a huge fear of public speaking, and that's because I had terrible experiences with public speaking when I was in primary school. But now I've had so many great experiences that, you know, I don't have that fear response anymore. So yeah, even with the same person, your expectations can change over time. and that changes your stress response to it. I want you to think of a hypothetical situation to understand this phenomenon better, which is some of your friends are going out to dinner this weekend, and you find out about this, and you realize that you haven't been invited. So just take a few seconds and think about what your inner response would be. Okay, so how many of you would feel a sort of negative or a painful emotion? One second, let me see. Raise your hand if it would be a negative. All of you. All right. So would it be one second? Let me go back to full screen. So would it be something a bit like this? Your expectation is that you wanted to be invited along with everyone else, and when you find out that you aren't, you're sad or you're hurt or you're angry. And then you start telling yourself a story. There's this narrative going on in your mind like, oh, they don't like me. Is there something wrong with me? Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not likable. Blah, blah, blah. Is that kind of what you were going for? I mean, would that be your experience? Like, generally speaking, raise your hand. If- Okay. So that's one type of response. But what if you had another expectation altogether? You're sort of going through an introvert phase, and all you wanted really from that weekend was to spend your weekend in solitude. So when you hear that your friends didn't invite you, you just feel a sense of relief or gratitude. And you think, and maybe your story to yourself is, okay, that was actually nice of them. They realized that I wanted some time to myself. Is that a possibility? S- So I recognize that this scenario is less likely than the first one, but I just wanted to show you how it's your expectation that determines your emotion and your narrative that you're telling yourself. Now, no matter what emotion it is that you are experiencing, and there is a three-step approach to calming yourself down as an emotion arises. The first one is awareness. So, when you start feeling something, the most important thing to do is to identify what exactly that emotion is. It is to become aware that you are experiencing something and then just identify to yourself what it is. So, if you're feeling sad, for example, don't just sit there in the sadness. Awareness is about taking a step back and sort of looking at your sadness from a kind of higher detached perspective. And then you can identify what the emotion is. You can, instead of just feeling sad, you can say, okay, I can feel myself getting sad. You see, there's a layer of detachment, a layer of separation. The interesting thing is, the part of you that can identify that you're sad is not sad. The part of you that identifies that you are angry is not angry. And the part of you that identifies that you are bored is not bored. It's just completely neutral. It's an observer. And that is what we call stepping into the observing ego or becoming the observer. And it is the most difficult thing to do when you're upset. Okay, it's one of those things that is very simple to do, but it's not easy to do because it's a very subtle thing where you have to step back from your emotion and just look at it. Something that could help you is to just drop down into your body and try to recognize where exactly in your body you're feeling it. Is it Are you feeling it in your stomach? Are you feeling some kind of jitters in your stomach? Or maybe you can feel a kind of constriction in your chest, or maybe your throat starts clamming up. I don't know, but emotions are primarily felt in the body. So awareness would mean that you identify what the emotion is and you identify where in the body that you're feeling it. That's an important skill. The second one, the second step is acceptance and actually feeling the emotion. So I know that this sounds like a very scary thing for a lot of people, especially men, when we tell people to feel their emotions because a lot of us have been taught to suppress our emotions or to ignore our emotions or to deny them. But when we do that, that's basically the exact opposite of what we should do. And to understand the logic behind what I'm saying, you should first know what an emotion is and that it's a response, it's a biochemical response to a perceived threat in your environment. And the actual response in your body only lasts 90 seconds. It's meant for you to take action on something because your mind or body has perceived some kind of threat in the environment. So when you ignore the emotion, when you suppress it, when you try to deny that it exists, your body, your nervous system perceives it as you ignoring the threat. It perceives it as you ignoring all the information that it's telling you. It thinks that you're unaware of the danger. So now it has to work even harder. So it produces more of it. And then your mind kicks in as well. Your mental narrative comes in and you start saying things like, oh, they don't like me, I'm not lovable, blah, blah, blah. You go into victim mode. And all those thoughts now further create another wave of emotion, another wave of the neurochemical response. And that's when you start going into this kind of vicious loop of just feeling sorry for yourself. And the more you feel sorry for yourself, the worse it gets. And that's all because you are trying to ignore and resist the emotion instead of accepting it. If you had accepted it, it would have flowed through your body in 90 seconds and you would have reverted to being completely calm again after that time. That's it. So, when I say acceptance, all that you need to do was step one, you had already identified the emotion, right? Step two is telling yourself, okay, I felt sad. It's okay that I'm feeling sad. I'm letting myself be sad right now. And then just let yourself be sad. Keep observing that sadness for those 90 seconds, or it will probably take you longer than 90 seconds in the beginning because you have to train yourself on it. I'm pretty good at it now. Now I can get out of like any kind of like severe emotional state in like 2 minutes. Like I just let it flow through and I'm calm again. The stress response is over and I'm back to normal. And that can be the case for you as well. As long as you learn to just accept and sit with your emotion instead of repressing it, instead of denying it, instead of ignoring it. And the third would be action. So after the emotion has flowed through, when you are calm again, you have to ask yourself, okay, what are the expectations that I have of the world? What are the beliefs that I have that have led to this emotional response and have caused this mental narrative of mine? Are they valid? Are they true? Are they real? Should they be changed? In this situation, do you know for sure that your friends meant to exclude you? That's an assumption that you're making. What if it was a kind of mistake? What if the person who was setting up the plans was really stressed that evening and they just forgot to invite you? You don't know. You're making a lot of assumptions there. So start questioning your expectations. and start questioning your beliefs. And then you would take action on the things that you can change. What was the purpose of that emotion in the first place? It was to get you to take action on something. And in this case, it would be just reaching out to them and asking them why that you weren't invited. And I know that can sound really scary to you. Maybe you think that's increasing the risk of rejection, or maybe you're afraid of what you might hear. Maybe you might hear something like you might find out that you're annoying them in some way. Or maybe you'll find out that they're not really your friends after all, and you might need a new group of friends. But the thing is, that all falls under action. That all falls under things that you can change about yourself and about your situation. And it's important to take action rather than just sit around doing nothing. Because when you sit around doing nothing, then your emotional state will be bad. As I told you, your emotion is to get you to take action. So the more you don't take action and the more you just sit passively by trying to accept things that you shouldn't be accepting and not making changes that you can change, the worse it will get for you. I know it takes a lot of courage to do that, but the fact that you are here listening to this, listening to ways in which you can improve yourself, tells me that you have an above average level of courage. And I just want to acknowledge you for that because most people wouldn't really be interested in doing the work to improve themselves. So, yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge. So the three-step approach that I described before, that was for dealing with painful emotions as they arise. But how do we also deal with longer term challenges and situations that can sort of really affect you in a bad way? Again, awareness, acceptance, and action. You do that with every emotion as it arises. And you also would take a three-part approach in the long term, a strategy. So, your body is the key, is the house of your nervous system. And your nervous system is what produces that stress response, right? And so it's really important to understand the importance of breath work because regulating your breath means regulating your nervous system because your breath actually controls your autonomic nervous system. And so there are lots of things that you can do. If you're interested in specific breathwork exercises, you can write to me. There are some resources that I can share with you. There's Wim Hof breathing, there's yogic breathing. The one that I really like is alternate nostril breathing. So that's a yogic technique. One second, I will show it to you. So you can follow me if you like. So you want to curl in your index finger and your middle finger, right? And then you always want to start off with your left nostril, with breathing into your left nostril. I'll explain why in a second. So take your thumb can, and cover your right nostril. Breathe in through your left nostril, like that. Then close your nose and then breathe out through your right nostril by covering the left. And then you alternate on the other nostril. If you are interested in that, I will send you more resources. Now, why is that particular technique important? Because the yogis believed that your left nostril is meant for cooling you down, and your right nostril is meant for firing you up or energizing you. And we know that that is true now. There's been a lot of research, scientific research, and what the scientists have found is that yes, the yogis were right, that the left nostril is connected with parasympathetic activity. and the right nostril is connected with sympathetic activity. Yeah. So one thing that you could do if you are like really really nervous and want to calm yourself down quickly is to just cover your right nostril and breathe in through your left nostril for a few minutes. And that will set off your parasympathetic system and it will calm you down. And you could do the opposite as well if you're feeling really low and you need a burst of energy. Cover your left nostril and just breathe in and out of your right nostril for a while. And that will energize you because it's firing up your SNS. Okay, now we've covered breath work and why it's important. And really, there's no getting around it. I know that diet, sleep, exercise, we've all been told that these things are important, but it's things that we don't really care about. It's just something that we know that we should be doing. And that's because until you do it, you really, really do not know how much these things affect the quality of your life. I changed my life when I changed my diet, and it gave me a new sense of control over my life. And it made me realize that I could do difficult things. And cutting out all the junk just made me feel so much better. These are the very basics. And if you don't have them right, then it is difficult to be calm and be regulated. Yeah, so do not underestimate these things. It's not just things that everyone tells you that you should be doing just for the heck of it. No, it will make a huge, huge difference in your life. Okay, and then we get to the mind, which is starting some kind of meditation or mindfulness practice to detach from your thoughts, to really learn how to observe them. I started meditation maybe a few years ago, and I didn't get it at the beginning. I hated it because I thought that it was about getting your mind to go blank or to go empty. And yeah, I know now that that is basically impossible for a beginner to achieve. You need to be a highly experienced meditator for to get your mind to go blank. So, in the beginning, do not even attempt to get your mind blank. All you need to do is to just observe your thoughts. Just keep observing and being aware of your thoughts and emotions, and then just let them go and come. Yeah, just keep observing them without getting involved with them. I know most people find this hard because there was a study that found out that about half the population would rather give themselves a mild electrical shock rather than meditate and be alone with their thoughts for even 10 minutes. But really, once you start doing that, once you start any kind of meditation or mindfulness practice, you'll start catching yourself. You'll notice just how many of your thoughts are useless and repetitive, and how much your thoughts are creating your own distress. How your expectations of the world are contributing to your problems. And you just learn to detach from it all. You learn to detach and let go. And it teaches you not to take yourself and your thoughts too seriously, that everything just comes and goes. Second to that would be regularly questioning and reframing your beliefs and expectations. So, your expectations are what determine your experience. They're what determine the story that you tell yourself. A significant amount of your distress is because you have expectations that cannot be met or are invalid in some way or might not fit the situation. So you want to be regularly questioning them and reframing your beliefs and expectations to make them more realistic, to see other points of view. What are the things that you are not considering? And the third bit would be working with the psyche or the emotions, which is to identify and overcome all your harmful defense mechanisms or coping mechanisms. It would be identifying and healing old wounds, going right back up to childhood. So, this is work that I do with my clients. Going into this in depth would be another webinar. So, I'm just giving you a very brief overview of it now. This is what we would call inner work. And some people can do it on their own. Most people need a therapist or a coach to do it. But yeah, it is crucial to do this work if you really want to maintain a sense of calmness, even in the most difficult of situations. And the third would be getting a philosophy on life where you just accept the messiness of it all. You accept that life is imperfect, that it will never be the way that you want it to, that your expectations of it are causing you pain, and that despite all of this, life can still be beautiful. There's still a point to it. And that even when things are not the way that you want them to be, even when things are painful, it is worth living. Okay, so let's do a quick recap of what we've learned. Number one, your nervous system is divided into your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system, which are complementary. They work together to maintain balance in the body. Your SNS is responsible for activating energy in your body and getting you into a fight or flight response to take care of threats. Your PSNS calms you down and helps with digestion. So, another point here that I hadn't brought up before, if you're someone who has a lot of anxiety, then you probably have things like digestive issues. And that's because your SNS is in overdrive and your PSNS has been suppressed. Another point, what happens if your PSNS is overactive and your SNS is sort of suppressed? That's what we call the freeze state. That's when you're sort of completely dissociated and you have no energy whatsoever to take action. You don't even feel like you're in your body anymore. So yeah, as you can see, the SNS and PSNS, they work together. And it's important that both of these systems be in balance. For a lot of us in this modern world, living very stressful lifestyles, our SNS is overactive, and deactivating the SNS is a skill, and it comes with practice and time. The second point is that pain is not an inherently bad thing. There is no growth in life without the eustress kind of pain. There's a quote by Mark Manson that I really like, which is, "Don't hope for a life without problems. Hope for a life filled with good problems." And with good problems, he meant the eustress kind of problems. The person that you marry is going to be the person that you fight with. That's just life. There is nothing good that comes as just good. There will always be a dark side associated with it. But even with distress, that is true because even the darkest of situations can lead to some light in the end because it breaks down your ego and makes you able to accept change in a way that it would never have before. We covered how it's your expectations of the world that determine how you emotionally experience it and how you mentally experience it. So, when you change your expectations, your emotions change and your thoughts around it change. To deal with painful emotions, we have a three-step process. The first is to gain awareness of the emotion, identify it, identify where in the body you're feeling it. The second would be acceptance. Just accept the emotion, let it flow through and let it go. It will be over much quicker. The faster you accept it, the faster it's out of your body. The more you resist, the more pain you will feel. The third is take action. Start questioning your expectations and then take action on the things that you can change. If you don't take action, those emotions will come back again because it means that you've kept yourself stuck in a situation where you should have made a change. And finally, to deal with long term challenges, you need a more holistic approach. You need to address the body, the mind, and the psyche because they all work together. And only by addressing each one of these things can we maintain a sense of calmness. All right, that's it. Thank you very much. Any questions?
I have a
No,
question.
I found this session. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Anne.
No. Okay, so like you mentioned that everybody has an issue and you would need to like overcome it. Like for example, you mentioned the public speaking,
Hmm.
and there's one thing about acceptance where you know that something is not working out. What would
Hmm.
be like a first step to work on it? Like get started on getting better.
Is it about something that you can change?
Yeah, I mean, fear of something. I'm not sure if it should be changed or it can be changed.
Hmm.
But if you have a fear of anything, like I have a fear of you know, be like talking to like socializing.
Hmm.
So I would prefer not to do that. Isn't that the safest thing? Why would I change that? So
No, I get you. I used to be like that. When dealing with a fear, the most important thing is exposure to it, gradual exposure. So start off small and work up each time you do it. So increase the difficulty level each time. The thing is, the more you hide from something that you're afraid of, the worse your fear will get. So you have to start very small. So you say you're scared of socializing. So, okay, what is the smallest thing that you can do to get over this fear?
try talking to someone I do not know.
No. So find one person that you can talk to, a new person, a stranger. That could be the smallest thing that you identify you can do. And once you've done that, then you set yourself a new challenge. And this one will be slightly bigger. And then when you accomplish that, you set yourself another challenge and that one's progressively harder. So the more you do it and the more you increase the difficulty level, the more you expose yourself to what you're afraid of, the faster it will go. Your fear will go.
Got it. Um,
Yeah. Any questions?
No questions, yes.
All right.
No, I don't have a specific question. I found the session quite useful and very
All right.
interesting. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, then we'll end it right here. Thank you very much.
Thanks,